All right, ready to dive deep into NTD exercise. It seems like everyone's buzzing about its unique approach, how it really shakes things up compared to like traditional workouts. You're really keen on getting to the heart of it, right? Understanding those core principles.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really fortunate, actually, to have the source material right from the source. Fias Al-Munir, he wrote the NTD exercise book. This is the first volume.
Oh, wow. Straight from the creator himself. Okay, so before we get lost in the weeds, could you give us the big picture? Like, for someone totally new to this, what is NTD exercise?
Well, NTD, it stands for No to Drugs.
Okay, that's a pretty bold statement right there, especially in the fitness world, where it feels like everyone's pushing supplements and all these quick fixes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what sets it apart. It's all about reaching like your maximum muscle growth naturally. No external aids, no anything.
Wow, so it's like harnessing your body's own power to build muscle, right?
Exactly. And what's really remarkable is how many people it appeals to. Like men looking for serious muscle hypertrophy, they find it incredibly effective. And then on the other hand, you have women who are drawn to it because it can help with body sculpting without going under the knife.
It's amazing how it could be so versatile, right? Addressing such different goals with a natural approach.
It really is. And, the story of how it came about is quite interesting. Firas Al-Munir, the author of the NTD exercise book, the one who came up with the whole system, well, initially he was searching for exercises that would be easy on the joints, something suitable for people with limitations. But he kind of stumbled onto something incredible. These gentle exercises, they actually produced amazing results for people with strong joints, too.
Wow, that's a classic example of how limitations can lead to breakthroughs, right? Okay, so let's talk about these revolutionary principles. What makes NTD so different, so unique?
Well, one of the most surprising and maybe even a bit counterintuitive is the focus on rest and recovery.
Now, that's interesting. You don't usually hear that. I mean, most of us think intense workouts are all about pushing through the fatigue, minimizing breaks, right? So how does NTD approach rest differently?
It's a total shift in perspective. You see, NTD sees rest not as an afterthought, but as a core component of muscle growth. And there are actually two types of rest they emphasize. Firstly, there's rest during the exercise itself.
So you're saying instead of just rushing through those reps, there's a strategy to the pauses.
Yes, allowing the muscles to fully absorb nutrients.
It's like being present in the moment, right? Really paying attention to each movement.
Exactly. And then the second type of rest is the rest you take after each repetition, after each muscle contraction. This kind of like luxurious approach to rest helps muscles grow faster, burns fat more efficiently. It's so different from those traditional methods that make you push through fatigue, which can actually lead to burnout and slow you down in the long run.
It sounds like NTD is replacing brute force with intelligent training almost. Now, I'm curious about another principle you mentioned, the safe angles. Could you expand on that a bit?
Of course. So safe angles refers to the specific angles you use when you do the exercises, and it's all about minimizing the stress you put on your joints. A lot of those traditional exercises, especially with heavy weights, they can put a real strain on your joints, which often leads to injuries, especially for people who are pushing their limits, or those approaching a professional level.
So it's like NTD is taking a longer view, prioritizing long-term joint health.
Yes, exactly. And that's where the careful design of NTD exercises comes in. They target your muscles effectively, but without putting so much pressure on those joints. Even the exercises themselves, they weren't just randomly chosen. Firas Al-Munir, he studied human anatomy, muscle physics, really dug deep into the science. Then he experimented, rigorously to figure out which movements were most effective for muscle growth.
Wow, so it's really backed by solid research, not just someone's random idea. All right, what about warming up? Does NTD have a special approach to that too?
Absolutely. In NTD, they advocate for a targeted warm-up using weights focused on the muscles you're about to train.
So no cardio or those general bodyweight warm-ups that we usually see in most gyms. What's the thinking behind that?
It's about efficiency. They believe those general warm-ups aren't as effective in preparing those specific muscles. So NTD cuts to the chase, warms up those muscles directly using weights.
So it's very specific, tailored to activate the muscles you're going to work. Tell me more about these programs. What makes them so unique?
Imagine climbing a ladder. You start with program A, then you move up to B, C, D, and so on. Each program, it builds upon the last one. The rest periods gradually increase, and you're introduced to different level of intensity like heavy, light, medium workouts.
So there's structure. It guides you through increasingly difficult workouts, right? Your body adapts, it grows. Okay, so let's talk about that progression. How do you know how many repetitions to do for each exercise in NTD? Is there like a set number?
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting. The number of reps, it actually depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're actually muscle growth, you'll usually do fewer reps with heavier weights. When you're using NTD for slimming, it's all about those higher reps with lighter weights. You're increasing the overall volume, the time your muscles are under tension. That burns more calories, helps shed the fat.
It's like a full body workout boosting that metabolism.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. The whole idea of high reps for slimming down in NTD, it's actually inspired by the Ka'an.
Wait, really? The Ka'an, that's fascinating. Tell me more.
The specific number, 377 reps for slimming exercises, it comes from the frequency of certain words related to slimming that are found in the Quran. Thirzaqal Munir, he drew inspiration from that.
It's fascinating how NTD seems to bridge that gap between physical training and a more holistic approach to health.
It really does. And this holistic view, you can even see it in how NTD deals with back pain, something that so many people struggle with these days.
Back pain, yeah, it's a real epidemic, and it can be so debilitating. How does NTD approach that?
Well, back pain, it often comes from a combination of things like poor posture, weak core muscles, bad lifting techniques. NTD, it addresses those root causes.
So it's about strengthening the foundation, not just masking the symptoms.
Exactly. The exercises in NTD, they strengthen those core muscles that support your spine, which naturally improves your posture and takes the strain off your back.
You know, speaking of Thirzaqal Munir, I've heard him described as a leader of a fitness revolution. What makes his approach so revolutionary?
It's more than just the exercises or the techniques, it's his whole philosophy. He's going against that old no pain, no gain mentality, you know, that idea that you got to push yourself to exhaustion every time. He's encouraging people to think differently about exercise, to make it sustainable, to listen to their bodies.
It's a real shift in thinking about fitness, isn't it?
It is, and it fits in with this whole concept of functional fitness that's gaining popularity. It's all about training your body for real-life movements.
I've heard that term before, but I'm not sure I really get it. What does functional fitness mean, and how does it connect to NTD?
Functional fitness, it means training your body to move efficiently and effectively in everyday life. It's not just about bulking up or getting that six-pack. It's about being able to move well, do the things you need to do without hurting yourself.
So training for life, not just the gym.
Exactly. And that's great for your back, too. When you train your body to move well in everyday situations, you're less likely to hurt your back when you're doing simple things like picking up groceries, playing with your kids, even bending down to tie your shoes.
Makes sense. It's like building a foundation of strength and mobility that carries over into everything you do.
Precisely. It's about moving through the world with ease and confidence. But, you know, we often talk about the physical side of fitness, the strength, the training, but we sometimes forget about the mental aspect. Where does mental focus fit in with NTD?
You're right. We tend to get caught up in the physical and forget about the power of the mind.
And NTD beautifully incorporates that mental aspect, the slow, controlled movements, the focus on maintaining perfect form throughout each rep. That requires a lot of mental concentration. You can't just zone out. You have to be present, engaged with each movement.
It's almost like a moving medication, isn't it? Quieting the mind, focusing on the body.
Exactly. And that mental focus, it can benefit you in all areas of life, not just in the gym.
How so?
Well, when you're fully present in your body, immersed in what you're doing, you're not stuck in the past or worrying about the future. You're in the now, experiencing those sensations of your body moving. It's a great way to calm the mind, reduce stress, and reconnect with yourself.
It's like a mental detox, finding stillness in the midst of all the chaos.
Exactly. And that journey, that exploration, that's what makes NTD so compelling.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive into NTD exercise. We've talked about those unique principles, how it can help with back pain, the importance of mental focus, even that spiritual side. But I'm sure there's even more to uncover.
You're right. And in our final part, I want to touch on something that's at the heart of NTD, but often misunderstood: muscle fatigue.
Muscle fatigue, huh? Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's delve into that after a quick break. Okay, so let's dig into this whole muscle fatigue thing with NTD. Seems kind of counterintuitive, you know, focusing on fatigue when usually in exercise we're trying to push through it, build up endurance and all that.
Yeah, you're right. That's the usual life thinking. But NTD, it flips the script. Remember all that talk about rest being so important?
Yeah, absolutely. Giving your muscles time to recover, rebuild, all that.
Exactly. And that's directly connected to how NTD approaches fatigue. You see, in traditional weightlifting, getting tired, it's almost like a badge of honor, a sign that you pushed yourself to the max.
Yeah, it's that no pain, no gain mindset.
Exactly. But NTD, it says, hold on, constantly pushing yourself to exhaustion, that might actually be hurting your progress.
Really? Why is that?
When you completely wear out your muscles, you're not just using up their energy, you're also making yourself more vulnerable to injuries.
Yeah, that makes sense. Tired muscles, sloppy form, that's a recipe for strains and sprains.
Exactly. And here's a key thing about NTD. Muscle growth, it happens mostly during recovery, not during the workout itself.
It's like that saying, muscles are torn in the gym, fed in the kitchen, and built in bed.
Haha, yeah, exactly. And NTD, it recognizes all three stages are important: the workout, the nutrition, and the rest.
So it's a holistic approach, taking everything into account.
Exactly. So back to fatigue, NTD says listen to your body, stop before you hit that wall of complete exhaustion.
I love that. It's not punishment, it's a gift. It's about celebrating what your body can do.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It really captures the NTD philosophy, and I think that's resonated with more and more people. They're moving away from all those extreme diets, those unrealistic body images. They're finding the joy in movement, the pleasure of feeling strong and capable.
You know, our listener today is looking for a solid 33-day biceps plan, like starting from scratch. So how does NTD actually work for biceps, especially for someone just starting out?
So NTD has these programs. They build on each other. You'd start with Program A, and this is where it gets interesting. You start with really light weights.
Okay, so we start light with Program A. How long do you stick with Program A before moving on?
It's not about a set time. It's about how you feel. When you're ready, you move on to Program B.
So Program B, what changes?
It brings in heavy and light training days.
Like alternating.
Exactly.
Interesting. Like a wave, heavy, light, heavy, light.
It keeps those muscles guessing, helps prevent plateaus.
Right, so you're pushing them hard on the heavy days, but then giving them time to recover and rebuild on those lighter days. Clever. I know the author also mentions an 18-day system.
Yeah, that's more for if you're looking for really accelerated muscle growth. It involves longer rest periods, like 14 to 18 days between workouts.
Okay, so we've got the framework down, but what actual bicep exercises should our listener be doing?
Definitely. Controlled movements, full range of motion, proper form, those are key. And don't forget another NTD principle, training one arm at a time.
All right, we've covered a lot. Program A, Program B, rest periods, even exercise selection. Feeling like an NTD pro over here. But there's another piece of this puzzle, right? Nutrition. What does NTD say about fueling those workouts?
That's a great question. And that is something we're going to dive into right after this.
Okay, we're back, and I'm ready to talk fuel. Got to keep those biceps growing, right? What about carbs, though? Are those off limits?
Not entirely, but the timing is important. Actually, one of the things the author suggests is avoiding carbs in your first meal after your workout.
Really? That's different. I always hear about refueling with carbs after you'd exercise. Why the delay?
The idea is that eating carbs right after a workout might actually make it harder for your muscles to grow.
Interesting.
Because instead of using those carbs to, repair and build muscle, your body might just store them as fat.
Ah, okay, so you delay the carbs to make sure the protein is prioritized for muscle recovery.
Exactly. It's about strategic timing.
So when do you get to eat carbs?
The recommendation is to up your carb intake in the second meal after your workout, and then keep it going for the next 24 hours.
Makes sense. Any other dietary guidelines to keep in mind with NTD?
Yeah, the author really stresses avoiding sugar, especially processed white sugar.
Right, because that just leads to energy crashes.
And it can mess with muscle recovery. So stick with those natural whole foods.
So prioritize protein for meat, time those carbs, and ditch the sugar. Got it. It's all about giving your body the right fuel at the right time. Okay, what about sleep? How important is that in the NTD method?
Oh, sleep is super important, especially for people just starting out.
I figured it would be. How much are we talking, though? 8 hours? 9?
Actually, the recommendation is 6 hours.
Really? Just 6? I always aim for at least 7 or 8.
It might seem counterintuitive, but the author believes that 6 hours is the sweet spot, especially with the NTD diet and workout plan.
Huh. I would have thought more sleep was always better.
It's interesting, right? The author even suggests that too much sleep can actually work against muscle growth.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, so we've got nutrition, sleep, and of course the workout itself. It seems like NTD is really about taking this holistic approach to training.
It is. It's about optimizing every aspect of your recovery.
I really like that. So to recap, we've learned about Program A and Program B. We talked about eating protein from meat, timing those carbs, and even getting that magic 6 hours of sleep.
And don't forget those key NTD principles, one arm at a time, slow and controlled movements, full range of motion, and of course, proper form.
Okay, this NTD approach is really making me think it's like a whole new way to approach strength training.
It is. It challenges a lot of what we've been told.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Could prioritizing rest, really understanding how your muscles work, be the key to getting stronger than you ever thought possible?
That's the big question.
And one we'll keep exploring as we wrap up this deep dive into NTD. Stay with us. Back again, thinking more about this whole NTD thing. What really stands out to me is how much it focuses on preventing injuries.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a lot of workout programs, they kind of almost encourage you to push yourself until you get hurt.
Yeah, it's all about pushing limits, and
Yeah.
and that's how you end up with setbacks and injuries.
Exactly. I love that. So if someone's listening and they're like, okay, I'm in, I want to try NTD, what's the first step?
Well, it starts with commitment. Are you really ready to put in the time and effort? Because it's not just about doing a few exercises.
It's a whole mindset shift.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle change, really.
Yeah, you have to really embrace the idea that rest is just as important as working out.
Knowing when to push yourself and when to back off a little bit.
Yeah, that's so important. It's like you're taking control of your own health and well-being,
You're in the driver's seat.
Exactly. Okay, so are you ready to unleash your inner NTD warrior?
I think so.
So keep experimenting, keep challenging yourself.
And keep listening to your body. All right, buckle up, because today we're going deep into something really different and might even seem a little bit crazy.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we're talking about something called contrary training.
Contrary training, huh?
Yeah, and it comes from this book. It's Firas Al-Manir's NTD Sport Volume 2.
Okay,
And this book, well, it's making some serious waves in the bodybuilding world, to say the least.
interesting. What's got everyone so riled up?
Well, Al-Manir, he's this, I guess you could call him a fitness guru, and he's claiming that he's onto something revolutionary.
Okay,
The book, it's packed with all these, well, they're unique exercises, that's for sure, that supposedly, tap into muscle growth like nothing else. He even goes as far as to challenge, get this, professional bodybuilders with one specific biceps exercise. And he says it delivers visible results almost instantly.
really? Visible results right away? What's so special about this exercise?
Yeah, that's what we're going to find out.
Okay, well, I'm all ears.
But before we get into the specifics of the exercises, can you tell us a little bit more about what makes this contrary training so different from, traditional weightlifting?
Sure. The basic idea behind contrary training, it really comes down to reversing the movement patterns that we're used to in traditional weight training.
Okay.
So for example, instead of doing a regular biceps curl where you're fixing your upper arm and moving your forearm in contrary training, you'd actually fix your forearms and move your upper arm.
Wait, so you're saying instead of curling the weight up, you'd be leaning back with the weight?
Exactly. It sounds kind of strange, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
But Al-Manir, he argues that by reversing these movement patterns, you're actually targeting areas of the muscle that often get neglected in traditional training.
So you're hitting those muscles from a totally different angle.
Yeah, and he says that this can lead to, more muscle growth and even potentially help prevent injuries.
Okay, I'm starting to see the logic here, but I have to admit I'm still a little bit skeptical. Can we break down one of these contrary exercises? I need a visual,
Absolutely. Let's take that biceps exercise that Al-Manir uses to challenge the pros.
Okay, yeah, that one.
So picture this. You're sitting down, arms working on your thighs, dumbbells in each hand.
Okay, got it. Pretty standard starting position.
Right, now here's where it gets interesting. Instead of curling the weights up, you raise your forearms until they're parallel to the ground,
Okay.
and you lock them in that position. Then you lean your upper body back, engaging your biceps in this whole new way.
Whoa, okay, that is definitely not your average bicep curl.
No, it's not.
But honestly, leaning back with weights in my hands, it sounds a little bit risky, doesn't it?
Well, Al-Manir repeatedly emphasizes the importance of slow, controlled movements throughout the entire exercise.
Okay, so it's all about control, not just throwing the weight around.
Exactly. And here's another twist. He insists on starting with a surprisingly light weight, just 1 kilogram for men, even if you're an experienced lifter.
1 kilogram, seriously.
Yeah.
Even for guys who are hitting the gym regularly.
Yes. He believes that because you're working these muscles in a whole new way, you need to start light and gradually increase the weight over time.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. So you're waking up these muscle fibers that haven't been used before?
Exactly. It's like giving your muscles a whole new stimulus.
That's pretty cool, actually. So how does the weight progression work? Do you just keep adding weight like you would with regular training?
You do increase the weight, but Al-Manir has a very specific system. He recommends adding 1 kilogram per heavy training day for men,
Okay.
and half that for women.
And this applies to all the contrary exercises in the book.
Yes, to all of them.
Wow, so you're constantly challenging your body with these new movements.
That's the idea. But, he does acknowledge that maintaining perfect form while increasing the weight can be challenging.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially with these kind of awkward movements.
Right. So he stresses the importance of adjusting your training program and incorporating enough rest. You have to listen to your body.
It's kind of like the same principles as with regular training then, right? You need to have rest days and listen to your body to avoid injury.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance between pushing yourself and allowing your body to recover.
Okay, that makes sense. But we've only talked about biceps so far. I'm curious, like, what other muscle groups does Al-Manir target with this contrary approach?
Oh, there's a whole bunch of other exercises in the book. For example, for the chest, he has this exercise where you use a chair and a single dumbbell.
Okay.
But instead of doing a typical pressing motion, you actually rotate your upper body, keeping your arms relatively still.
Really? Okay, now that sounds wild.
Yeah.
What about other muscle groups like legs, back, shoulders?
He has exercises for all those muscle groups. For calves, he has this exercise where you stabilize your foot and rotate your lower leg.
Huh. So like a reverse calf raise.
Yeah, something like that. He claims you'll actually see a difference in your muscle appearance right after doing a few reps.
But with all this talk about unconventional movements and pushing limits, I have to ask, what about the risk of injury? That's got to be a concern with this type of training.
It is a concern, and Al-Manir doesn't shy away from that. In fact, he repeatedly cautions readers about the potential for injuries, especially tendon rupture, with contrary training.
Okay, so this is not something to just jump into without, like, being careful.
No, not at all. He emphasizes the importance of proper form and a gradual approach. And he even suggests reducing the range of motion, particularly when you're lifting heavy weights.
That's interesting because it seems to contradict the traditional bodybuilding wisdom of going through a full range of motion.
It does. Right. And that's what makes this system so fascinating. It really challenges a lot of the conventional thinking about how we train and build muscle.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what we're here to explore. Is this just another fitness fad, or is there something truly revolutionary about Al-Manir's approach?
Exactly. So let's dive in and see what we can uncover.
Sounds good to me. It's interesting though, right? Because he's promoting this system, but he's also really emphasizing safety.
So I guess kind of moving on from that, besides just the whole be careful tendon rupture thing.
Right.
I'm curious about the why behind all of this. Like, why does he think this works? Does he explain the physiology at all? Like, is there some kind of scientific basis for it?
So he doesn't really cite specific scientific studies in the book.
Okay.
But he does give explanations based on, his own observations and experiences with the athletes that he's worked with.
Okay.
And his main argument is basically that contrary training, it activates these muscle fibers.
Yeah.
That are typically underutilized.
Right. Okay.
So, like we were talking about before, so it's hidden pockets of muscle.
Yeah. The ones that normal exercises might not be hitting.
Exactly.
Okay.
So he thinks that by targeting these underutilized areas, you can unlock new potential for growth.
Okay.
And even, potentially improve your overall strength and stability.
Okay. And I mean, that makes sense, right? Our bodies are designed to move in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And you don't always get that full range of motion with, the typical gym workout.
Right. And I think that's where contrary training could actually have applications even beyond bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So imagine, a tennis player.
Right.
Who incorporates contrary exercises.
Yeah.
They might develop greater control.
Yeah.
And power in their swing.
Right. Okay.
Because of, the increased activation.
So they're using these muscles that they weren't using before.
Exactly.
Okay. So it's almost like cross training in a way.
Yeah, I guess you could think of it like that.
Okay.
And, or even a dancer.
Right.
Who could gain greater flexibility.
Right.
And range of motion.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
From these unconventional movements.
So, yeah, I mean, there could be benefits, even outside of bodybuilding.
Right. Exactly. The potential is pretty wide-ranging if you think about it.
Okay. We've talked about the exercises, the theory, but, how do you actually design a program? How do you integrate this into a balanced, workout routine?
Right. So he does give some specific, guidelines for this in the book.
Okay.
For, implementing what he calls his dual system.
Dual system.
Yeah. So it's not about, abandoning traditional exercises completely.
Oh, okay.
It's about combining the contrary exercises with what he calls the basic exercises that he outlines in volume 1 of his, encyclopedia.
Gotcha.
He sees them as working together,
Right. So it's not like you're doing all contrary exercises all the time.
No, not at all.
Okay.
In fact, he recommends a very gradual approach, especially for beginners.
Okay.
You might even need a break period.
Okay.
Before you even incorporate the contrary exercises to allow your body to adjust.
Got it.
Kind of easing into a new training stimulus.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you actually structure the workout?
Yeah.
Do you just do them randomly?
Yeah.
Is there a specific method?
Yeah. How do you mix them together?
So he suggests aligning like your training days
Okay.
for both types of exercises.
Okay.
So if you're doing like a light biceps workout with basic exercises one day,
Yeah.
you'd also do like a light biceps workout
Right.
with a contrary exercise.
Okay.
The same goes for like moderate and heavy days.
Uh-huh.
Like the intensity levels should match for both types of exercises.
Gotcha. So you're basically creating like this 2 parallel tracks of training.
Yeah, exactly. Like running side by side
Yeah.
throughout your whole training program.
Okay. And then the weight regression for the contrary exercises, it follows that same like, pattern
Right.
of those small increases on the heavy days.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. But he emphasizes not, sacrificing form for weight, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Especially with these kind of like weird new movements.
Yes, form is super important, he says. You might even need to adjust like your program and your rest periods
Okay.
just to make sure that you're not compromising form as you increase the weight.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about people who have like, already been following his basic exercises like from the first volume?
Right.
How do they integrate like this contrary system into what they're already doing?
So he actually gives a couple of options for that.
Okay.
You could initially treat the contrary exercises as if they're targeting like brand new muscles,
Okay.
which means that you could like increase the weight
Yeah.
on days that you don't increase the weight for the basic exercise.
Oh, okay.
So you're essentially like easing them in
Right.
gradually,
Okay.
letting your body adapt to the new demands.
So it's almost like you're treating them like a completely separate workout.
Yeah, kind of. And then like after a couple months of this, you can then start aligning your training days like we talked about before.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. But zooming out for a second,
Yeah.
why should somebody even like consider trying this system?
Right. That's the big question.
Yeah.
What are the benefits?
Like, what's in it for me, right?
Right. And, it all boils down to results.
Right.
Right. And El Banir, he claims that athletes who has implemented his dual system
Yeah.
have seen like significant gains
Okay.
in muscle mass, strength, and even a reduction in injuries.
All right. So, I think we've covered a lot here.
Yeah.
We've gone from, these counterintuitive exercises to like, unconventional training systems.
Yeah,
And we've like, uncovered some pretty intriguing possibilities.
for sure.
But let's not forget about those bold claims about the, 10 kilogram muscle gains.
Right.
We've talked about the potentials for muscle growth, but like, are those numbers realistic?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's something we're going to dig into in our next segment.
All right, so stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back to continue our deep dive into the fascinating world of contrary training. All right, so we're back, and I'm ready to tackle those, like, those muscle gain claims.
Yeah.
10 kilograms, that's a pretty big number, right?
Yeah, it definitely catches your eye, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. So, like, is that even realistic?
Well, I think it's important to remember that El Manir, he's talking about, the combined effects
Right.
of both his basic exercises
Yeah.
and the contrary exercises.
Right, the dual system.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he doesn't actually say how much of that gain is, like specifically from the contrary training.
So it's not like, you do these weird exercises and suddenly you gain 10 kilograms.
No, it's about, like the two systems working together,
Right.
the basic exercises, they kind of build that foundation.
Okay.
And then, the contrary exercises, they'd like tap into those underutilized muscle fibers. And that's what, according to Al Manir,
Yeah.
could lead to greater overall growth.
All right, so this has been, a pretty wild deep dive.
Yeah.
We've gone from these weird exercises to like, these unconventional training systems.
It's been a journey.
Yeah, and we've uncovered some really like, intriguing possibilities along the way.
Definitely.
So we encourage you to like, dive into the source material,
Yeah.
ask questions, experiment, and most importantly,
Listen to your body.
listen to your body. That's key.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into the fascinating world of contrary training.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting one.
Until next time, stay curious, keep those brains pumping, and never stop exploring.
And keep lifting.
Yeah, keep lifting safely.